Greetings, my fellow freedom-loving sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mango, South Florida, and today's date is Saturday, September 15th, 2018. So let us begin. Thanks for tuning in, my friends. Saturday, September 15th. Warm but beautiful in Fort Lauderdale. And wish everyone well. I know the Hurricane Florence, people, looks like they said 9 people were reported dead at the moment, and 30,000 people without power, maybe more. So, like I said, we have to wish them the best, and our thoughts and prayers are with you folks up there. Was one of those things. One thing about I notice in the news, they like to really hype stuff up like hurricanes and so forth, natural disasters. And don't get me wrong, you have to be prepared at all times. Even the mainstream news want to try to say that preppers are for charlatans and so forth. Let me tell you something. Don't buy their garbage by any means. Don't do things half-assed or do things ludicrous. It's good to prep yourselves, okay? Even if you're a Bible reader or a Satanist on the Church of Satan member, will attest to that. Any of them. Because it's the right thing to do. You don't want to go in there empty-handed and government tells you how to do what to do and wipe your rear ends. But the truth of the matter is, gotta know your surroundings, your environment, and be ready if necessary, including defending your property, your families, etc. Hopefully that won't be the case in those areas, but you have to expect it's just the nature of the beast. You always have folks out there that want to take things for granted. So, make sure everyone up there is doing okay, just one of those things. And one thing I noticed too is that I lost my track there. Track thought. The so-called revolution. Everyone's talking about revolution. Revolution. We got to fight. We haven't had a revolution because President Trump's in there and so forth. Been hearing this from certain people in the area. The question I have, Kio Bono, who benefits? It won't be you. It won't be your rank and filing comrades or allies. Don't be surprised that banksters are involved in this. They want to see violent manifestations of violent revolutions and so forth. The only way to solve that is the revolution of the mind. Inspire. See things a lot broader. Just like I told people in good faith, you hear this title, Democratic Socialism Movement. It has happened in the 30s. All you gotta do is read what the Roosevelt during the time when FDR was involved. Nothing new under the sun. Bob Livingston will agree. I did an article. I remember I narrate that one, and it makes a lot of sense. People gotta study the past as today's greatest teacher. But you got now, you want governments who want to have us dumb down, be stupid, dumb, stagnant, happy, and pledge to the flag and go, yes, I'm free. I will be treated as a prisoner because of 9/11. They attacked me for freedom, so I will give it up for security. That's not how it works. Liberty-minded individuals defy that. I see a truck out there. It was a 5K run, and it says never forget about the 9/11 and so forth. It was a nice portrait. I had to walk by there and went, yep, never forget that 9/11 was a New World Order agenda, and this nation and the world became more of a tyrannical police state. The war on terror is a war with ourselves and beyond. That's what I say, Kio Bono, who benefits? Not you and I, my friends. I guarantee you that. But one thing for sure, they want us to belly up, be us enslaved, like Larry Pinckney, the original Black Panther Party said, since the 14th Amendment, we're all under the same plantation. Political, technocratic, it doesn't matter. So, try to blame the white person still. It's old, stagnant, pathetic. They did the same thing. I'm trying to blame other groups. Full circle. It's irrelevant. Null and void. I don't buy that for a minute. And there's people around my age that are still trying to talk that garbage. I laugh at them. That's why many of these people, they try to, when I hear some crap, when I tell them, when they ask me some question, they get so surprised because they didn't know I had that mindset. That's what happens when you live in the shell, in a cave, symbolically speaking. You gotta be an explorer. Go out there and mingle with folks, honorably. Don't go around saying you're better than everybody else. That's absurd. They ever talk about Donald Trump, white supremacy, white nationalists. Yeah, and Wally Cleaver is my role model. Even though Eddie Haskell's with a pain in his ass, but still his best friend, right? Come on. So we're going to be talking a few other things, mainly gun control, and why now the United States has decided with Al-Qaeda. Remember that? Al-Qaeda is our enemy. We got to fight terrorism. We got to wipe out Al-Qaeda. Do you recall that? Yeah, they were used in Syria. The humanitarian mission, Barack Obama said, President Obama. It's not an attack of war, but a humanitarian mission. Al-Qaeda is aligned with us to overthrow Gaddafi. Remember that? Same old song and dance, my friend. Nothing new under the sun. All right, so I'm going to start off with one of my favorite ginos. You know what a gino is? A Jew in name only, because she is nothing, but that's all she is. Senator Dianne Feinstein from California. If she claims to be Jewish by faith, you're entitled to smack the living daylights out of her because she's speaking in a blasphemous perspective. All right, it says here, Senator Dianne Feinstein claims her assault weapons ban worked, but here's what she didn't tell you. Senator Feinstein hasn't done any research on the matter. She merely parrots whatever she wants to parrot, despite the fact that she doesn't tell you the whole story. It is by Tim Brown. Came out yesterday. On Friday, Senator Feinstein tweeted out members that she clearly didn't come up with herself, pretty much took work from the Washington Post's reports on various gun violent experts that claim gun ban works. The problem is that her claim comes from one man, and she doesn't present the entire picture of what takes place when you introduce mass gun bans. Feinstein tweeted 24 years ago today, President Clinton signed our assault weapons ban into law. Over the next 10 years, there were 37% fewer gun massacres and 43% gun massacre deaths. But in the 10 years after the ban expired in 2004, the gun massacres rose by 239%. Hashtag enough's enough. Yeah, enough's enough. I'm tired of Senator Feinstein's treasonous attributes. That's right. I call her a traitor, just like the late John McCain. Late, great, not so great, insane John McCain. 24 years ago today, President Clinton signed our assault weapons ban into law over the next 10 years. Yep, okay, it's already been repeated. That's what she tweeted on here, September 13th. Okay, first, she pulled this from the CIA-tied Jeff Bezos-owned Washington Post, which included a section on John Calaveras of the University of Massachusetts at Boston and his book, Rampage Nation. According to Calaveras, would you see drastic reductions in what I call gun massacres when the return of the 1994 federal assault weapons ban. However, while he defines gun massacres as 6 or more people shot and killed, does not mention that in a particular firearms used to commit the crimes. After all, a majority of crimes committed with a gun do not include what Feinstein and her lemmings referred to as assault weapons. Here's part that Feinstein pretty much lifted to tweet. Compared with the 10-year period before the ban, the number of gun massacres during the ban period fell by 37%, and the people dying from gun massacres fell by 43%. But after the ban lapsed in 2004, the numbers shot up again, an astonishing 183% in massacres and a 239% increase in massacre deaths. That's what you call a drama queen on parade. While Calaveras mentions high-capacity magazines factor in far as a ban, he apparently produces no evidence of weapons used in the shootings being tied to that. Furthermore, if someone wants to simply bypass the issue, they can bring up many weapons that fall under the prescribed legislation that seeks to restrict and regulate the keeping of and bearing arms, which is a violation of the Second Amendment and the Ninth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution as well. These folks got to add that to it, man. Come on. Don't be shy, Mr. Brown. I'm going to have to shove that down your throat. I will, and I say that out of love. Senator Feinstein hasn't done any research on the matter. She merely parrots wherever she wants to parrot, despite the fact that she doesn't want to tell you the whole story. Following the shooting in Texas last year, Feinstein introduced another assault weapon ban bill, saying the bill won't stop every mass shooting, but will begin removing these weapons of war from our streets. Yes, it will be a long process to reduce the massive supply of these assault weapons in our country, but we got to start somewhere. No, you need to follow the Constitution, and since it won't stop mass shootings in the least, it will do no good. Let me quote from previous article, the article I wrote a few years back regarding things Feinstein didn't tell you occurred in her ban that was lifted in 2004. The original piece was written back in 2012, long after Feinstein's unconstitutional legislation saw its end. In 1992, the United States has a violent crime rate of 757.7 per 100,000. The murder and non-negligent manslaughter rate was 9.3 per 100,000. When you consider the numbers, we're talking an extremely small percentage. Nearly 20 years later, would you think the United States violent crime has increased or decreased, especially in the light of the fact that there are hundreds of millions of guns in our country? If you said increase, you're wrong, dead wrong. In 2011, the same report shows that this violent crime rate has dropped to half of what it was in 1992. Violent crime rate reported in 2011 was 386.3 per 100,000. How about that murder rate? Same thing. It dropped nearly 50% as well to 4.7 per 100,000. According to the FBI's CIUS report, I think it's report on murder victim by weapons, the total number of firearms used to commit murder in 2011 were 8,583. The number is down by 1,500 from 2007, and might add, without an assault weapons ban. The report also indicated the kind of firearms used in these murders: handguns, rifles, shotguns, other guns, firearms not stated. Of the 8,583 murder in 2011 committed with a firearm, only 323 were used. The AR-15 and other rifles referenced as assault weapons by the left are a subset, that of 323. These are the things to keep in mind when dealing with emotional, irrational, and moronic gun control freaks. Fact, the United States violent crime rate is down 50% in the past 25 years. Fact, the United States murder rate is down 50%. The fact, the United States has less than 3.5 less times violent crime than disarmed United Kingdom. Fact, rifles deemed by gun grabbers as assault weapons are used in small minority of murders that occurred annually in the United States. So violent crime goes down when assault weapon bans are not in place, and that by 50%. Feinstein doesn't tell you that. She also doesn't tell you she is targeting more than AR-15. She is basically targeting virtually every semi-automatic handgun and shotgun in the market, and even semi-automatic weapons. Don't be fooled. And he's right, because Senator Bob Graham at the time, when I was against that semi-automatic weapons ban, but he supported Dianne Feinstein. I support the Second Amendment. However, what did he say? However, that means I'm an effing liar. So that's what I say about Senator Bob Graham, or former Florida Governor Bob Graham. Lest you think Feinstein respects the Second Amendment. She doesn't. She told the people that she would have revoked the Second Amendment rights and force people to turn their weapons in. But you know what? I can say this to that old bag. If you gotta force people, I want you to go door to door without any armed assistance. Let's see how tough you really are. You can't, because you're a coward. You're a treasonous quack, Dianne Feinstein. And there's a video on here too. You can look it up yourself. But you don't take my word for it. Look at the FBI's own numbers through 2017 and see if you think Feinstein claimed that you believe in the light of what it virtually produces: more violent crime. Furthermore, the vast majority of gun crimes occur in the most strict gun-controlled metropolitan cities in America. In metropolitan areas where the population is greater than 250,000, the violent crime rate is double of the national average. The murder rate is more than double the rate of the national average. If what she says is true, there should be an effect, but that doesn't happen, does it? And she isn't about to tell you that. The fact is that because people use a tool to commit a crime does not mean banning the tool will stop such crimes. It just means the criminal will find new means to commit the violent crime. And this is what Feinstein will never tell you because it exposes a lack of logic she possesses. And to cite the Second Amendment exposes her lawlessness. The incredible Bill Whittle did an amazing video just a couple years ago demonstrating that the things I presented in the coincides presentation and what she showed that despite the fact that America leads the world in gun ownership, we aren't listed in the top 100 countries of murder rate, unless maybe you support Dianne Feinstein and others support that is that the Holocaust of American babies murdered every year. That's called abortion, but people don't call that murder, the ones that actually support it. And I'll keep on here. That just doesn't apply to America. In that same report, I pointed out what took place over England with their gun ban. Take a look at the Home Office Statistical Bulletin, which gives the crime numbers for England and Wales for 2011-2012. Keep in mind that these numbers will be the lowest in the UK as separate crime stats are kept in Northern Ireland and Scotland, which are even higher than the ones in this report. England and Wales have combined a population of about 56 million. Take a look at the number of violent crime offenses that took place in 2011. According to this report, there were 762,515 violent crime offenses. In a population of 56 million, that comes to 1,361 per 100,000. That's 3.5 times the rate of the United States. England and Wales do have a smaller murder rate than the United States, which is 1.3 per 100,000. However, what we are not told in the discussion is what instruments are used to commit the murders or violent crimes that are listed. Clearly, this armed UK population has a higher rate of violent crime than the mass armed citizenry of the United States. This is important because from those who advocate that people be allowed to defend themselves, a firearm is the very best means of doing that. Additionally, you carry a firearm in hopes that you'll never have to use it. Additionally, keep in mind that in the United States, we have 186 metropolitan areas where the population of 250,000 or greater. In the UK, they have only 32. So, what is the moral here? The less guns do not mean less violent crime. So what is the moral here? Yeah, exactly. Additionally, Feinstein will never tell you about places throughout the world that have far stricter gun control that represents the U.S. have unlawfully imposed, and the results have been beyond anything we've seen in America. Take a look at the Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler. Take a look at Communist China under Mao Tse-tung. Take a look at Cambodia under Pol Pot. Take a look at the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. Take a look at Italy under Benito Mussolini. And just to let you know, to add this on here about China, firearms were outlawed in 1935 under nationalist China, and Chiang Kai-shek and 20 million people were slaughtered by his regime. So let's give you that input in there as well. So people say, "Oh yeah, but Mao banned guns." No, he implemented it. He kept it. He preserved it for his own personal gain. But Chiang Kai-shek was responsible for that in 1935, and Mao came in 1948. Just to put that fact in good faith, because people will throw that back at you. Let Feinstein defend his arming people and bring those instances up to her. I believe the reason Feinstein wants to take our guns is because she is afraid. She's a fearful woman, and so are other communist-minded senators like Connecticut's Chris Murphy. She demonstrated that with her ridiculous claims during the Carnival hearings. However, the law is based upon the moral of God, not fear. Keep that in mind. It is a woman that had a communist Chinese spy as her driver and advisor for 2 decades. There's a link for that. Do you really want to trust her with anything in the government, let alone protecting your rights? You never trust the government, period. The issue is not a particular gun. It's not about how many people you carry or the capacity of the magazine. It's all about the heart. And for the criminal, they have a darkened heart, and that's just as darkened as Senator Dianne Feinstein's heart, which seeks to commit crimes against the people and the Constitution by infringing on law-abiding citizens' rights. The only cure for such a thing lies in the gospel of Jesus Christ, which was based on the law of God, and the person and work of Christ was the foundation of America once upon a time. In fact, that was made America great. That's Sons of Liberty. Doesn't matter what your belief system is, and I'll be very, very frank. When people said the country started on Christianity, George Washington does agree, and including John Adams, which he's a Christian. They're both Christians by faith, if I'm correct. But if they use the Bible for a certain inspiration, yeah, because remember, the Bible in Greek means multiple books, a book of multiple books, a book of many books. And so it has some information, especially on ancient Judea, because a grand jury was created in ancient Judea, and if I'm correct, the trials as well, you're innocent until proven guilty. So those areas, you can say, has merit. I'm not going to argue about that at all. But the whole thing is this: Dianne Feinstein claims to be Jewish by faith, and she's not, and she's a hypocrite on her beliefs. So that's why I call her a Gino, a Jew in name only. That's not being anti-Semitic either. It's just the damn truth. And many people who are Jewish that are pro-freedom will agree with me, or that will completely agree with me on that. And you have to look at another thing too. Gun control, banning firearms is a contribution to enslavement. This is what happened in the past, even in the United States alone, when certain states, including northern states like Mid-Atlantic areas like Maryland, for example, okay, you were like people who were blacks or African American descent that during like the 1800s, so forth, weren't allowed to own firearms, whether if you're a free or a slave, including mulattoes. Just to give you that example. But Dianne Feinstein wants to do that on steroids, enslave us all. She's a slave mistress in disguise. So that's one of the areas you have to really look at too, folks. If you study history about genocide and democide, yeah, they say about 170 million people were slaughtered in genocidal purpose by the hands of the tyrannical governments in the 20th century alone. But these gun control freaks get like back up, like you come like zombified. Oh, there you are! You know, that's how these clowns are. They hate when you throw the truth at them like a big monkey wrench in their pretentious rhetoric. Yes, that's why I call her a treasonous quack, such as Charles Schumer. I could even put in Jorge Bush in there too, George W. Bush, all these people. Doesn't matter what party they're in. They're nothing more than treasonous parasites, vampires, Orwellian saps, as far as I'm concerned. So that's why there's people like her, you gotta never trust the government, period. Regardless, and I've been telling people for a long time, if you have any questions, study history. If not, sit down and shut up until you learn it. So I'm going to continue on here. Speaking of this, and this one here came from the Activist Post. I believe this came out a couple days ago, and it's this one's here: a brief history of repressive regimes and their gun laws. And it's Jose Nino. Yeah, Jose Nino wrote this. And it says here, arguably one of the rights to have less government encroachment in the U.S. In contrast to other activities such as commerce. Gun rights are now witnessing unprecedented attacks at the state level, even from politically connected corporate entities. Although gun control laws are not created equally in terms of overall impact, gun confiscation holds a special place in the halls of political repression. A trip down memory lane will give us a refresher of how gun confiscation has helped consolidate government power. The United States and its satellite states. Soviet Union left as marked one of the deadliest political regimes in history of mankind. However, it could not get away with such atrocities without having a complete monopoly on the use of force. Ironically, the famous leader Vladimir Lenin called a proletarian militia in his essay letters from afar. Lenin charted out his vision in the following passage. What kind of militia do we need? The proletariat, all the toiling people. A genuine people's militia, i.e. one that first consists of the entire population and all citizens of both sexes, and second, one that combines the function of people's army with police functions, or the functions of the chief and fundamental organ of public order and public administration. Lenin's ideas manifested themselves in military from once the Military Revolutionary Committee was created in late 1917, despite the ostensive revolutionary nature. These military forces morphed into another enforcement arm of the state. To maintain its iron grip, the Soviet Union had to turn to the most proven form of suppression, gun confiscation. On December 1918, the Council of People's Communists mandated that Soviet citizens turn to firearms. Failure to do so lead to prosecution. That's right. Remember, Vladimir Lenin was a bankster's butt boy too. Prove me wrong, you Leninist clowns and sympathizers. Come on, prove me wrong if you dare. Soviet gun control laws remained tight in the following decades. Although the government did not go out of its way to give Communist Party affiliates privileged access to firearms. Once World War II came to an end, Eastern European countries took after the Soviet overlords and started implementing gun confiscation, as detailed by firearm possession by non-state actors, the question of sovereignty. Several countries stood out during this period of time. Bulgaria, once communists took power in 1944, they confiscated privately owned firearms. East Germany, communist gun ownership was banned, even though the government did allow for agricultural collectives to possessing hunting weapons while taking part in government-supervised hunts. Hungary, the Communist Minister of Interior, Lazio Rajek, dissolved all pistols and hunting clubs while also dismantling other organizations that potentially pose a threat to government power. Although the numbers are highly disputed, Robert Conquest contents in his book Great Terror that at least 15 million people perished under the Soviet rule. Nazi Germany. These days, the word Nazi is tossed out liberally, almost rendering its definition meaningless. Regardless of the Nazi history, should never be forgotten. Interestingly, both sides of the gun debate mistakes when discussing gun control policy in Nazi Germany. Pro-gun control side claims that gun rights were actually expanded under Nazi rule, but there is more to the story. The marginal liberalization in gun law specifically favored the German populace. Independent Institute senior fellow Stephen P. Holbrook gives a announced account on the Nazi gun policy. In 1938, Hitler signed a new gun control act that now that many enemies of the state, I think it was November 11th to be exact, that had been removed from society. Some restrictions could be slightly liberalized, especially for Nazi Party members, but Jews were prohibited from working in the firearms industry, and a .22 caliber hollow point ammunition was banned. In sum, the Jewish population was disarmed and had no way of defending itself against increasingly militant Nazi political operatives. But pro-gun advocates aren't exempt from making mistakes in their analysis either. Second Amendment supporters often attribute gun control passages exclusive to Adolf Hitler's government. However, a more thorough view of history demonstrates that the preceding Weimar Republic was responsible for passing gun registration. Weimar officials rationalized the passage of gun control in the name of public order, for fear of Nazis and communists coming to blows on the street. Unbeknownst to the Weimar Republic, their gun control framework would later be exploited by the Nazis to disarm the Jews and subject them to the most horrific case of genocide in human history. It's interesting about that. You can there's a video out there called "No Guns for Jews" that was done by the JPFO. And I think I'm going to be doing. I'm going to add a few of those few of those links. I may add that link on there as well. So just give you guys a heads up. I may just do that. And possibly No Guns for Negroes, too. I might just put those two in there, just give you a little brief history. And it says here, Cuba, one of Latin America's most prosperous countries. Cuba succumbed to the siren song of socialism when Fidel Castro took power in 1959. Similar to the Nazi case, Castro took advantage of the firearm registration list established by the previous government. The once dictator, Fulgencio Batista, was deposed. Castro's tyrannical instincts kicked in his speech at the masquerade barracks of San Ambrosio. Castro exclaimed, "Guns for what? To fight against whom? Against the revolutionary government that has supported the people?" Following this speech, gun confiscation slowly commenced. The Castro government started by targeting rival revolutionary groups who fought the Batista government, but were not communist affiliates. Then the Castro government broadened the definition of rival revolutionaries to disarm the more of the populace. To this day, Cuba has strict foreign regulations. Government entities like the National Revolutionary Police, the Ministry of Interior, and the Ministry of the Revolutionary Armed Forces are in charge of regulating firearms. Like other socialist programs, the Cuban experience has been filled with death and economic destruction. Estimate points to 141,000 Cubans murdered at the hands of the Castro regime, with millions of Cubans fleeing to the United States in search for greener pastures. And I gotta say this too, Batista was a douchebag as well. I don't want to hear these people pro-Castro, they hate Batista's people. You know what? I'm like, you're all the same, as far as I'm concerned. Fuck a bunch of tyrannical hacks, man. You know, that's how I look at these people at times. Pretty damn critical, but you know what? I'm a freedom lover, sovereign thinker. I'm not part of these little pretentious Mickey Mouse clubs. And those two were just examples. Venezuela. It's no secret that the Venezuelan government has eviscerated property rights and fundamental civil liberties in the crisis of the beleaguered country. But how has the Venezuelan government been able to stay in power? The Venezuelan government's civilian disarmament campaign is an oft-ignored abuse of human rights and discussion concerning Venezuela's political crisis. The Venezuelan government started by passing the original version of the Controlled Arms Munitions Disarmament Law. Since then, the law has been modified to broaden the scope of the firearms regulated by the Venezuelan armed forces, will have the power to register, control, and confiscate firearms. The day of reckoning came when Venezuela banned the sale of firearms and ammo in 2012 under the guise of the fighting crimes. Despite the gun ban in place, crime rates continue to skyrocket. Now Venezuelans have no way of defending themselves against a government that is free to muzzle their speech, expropriate their wealth, debase the currency, and starve them to death. And that weren't enough, the average Venezuelan must contend with the constant threat of common criminals and collectivos, Venezuelans' infamous pro-government paramilitary units. Even the 21st century has nasty effects of gun confiscation still being felt. And I'll be honest about the whole thing that happened with Maduro and all that. And, I'm not a big fan of people like governmental figureheads and so forth. But I wasn't really too crazy if the CIA got involved into a coup attempt. There's some claim to that in the past, and even some of the laws that the United States signed about getting involved, necessary communications, etc. However, like I tell people, I'm not really a fan about this stuff. And there's a video by We Are Change, which Jeff and Luke, Jeff from Television, they actually have no firearm signs. All firearms are banned all along Venezuela, so you can just look this up yourself, man. You'd be surprised. You'd be really surprised what people they don't want to tell you. Is South Africa next? South Africa has recently embraced gun confiscation, according to the Citizen. The Constitutional Court of South Africa ordered the confiscation of about 300,000 firearms on June 7, 2018. To say political tension in South Africa is mounting would be an understatement. Since ending the apartheid, South Africa has embarked on a troubling route of economic statism. To make matters worse, the South African government is currently pursuing land redistribution in order to address the so-called racial injustices. You know what's funny about that? What's funny about that? They're actually doing land redistribution and selling to the Chinese. Yeah, look that up about confiscated land being sold to the Chinese for minerals. All right. Racial injustices, all irrelevant. Although politicians from the African National Congress Party have recently backed down from ramming land confiscation legislation into law, there is no telling what could be in store for South Africa now that gun confiscation has been activated. It would be a mistake to believe South Africa's gun confiscation ordinance was a random occurrence. Its logical conclusion of South Africa's current gun control framework. The genesis of this troubling development began with the passage of the Firearms Gun Control Act of 2000, which features an extensive system of gun registration. It is easy for anti-gun entities to identify gun owners and confiscate the firearms in the long run when they have their information on the books. with the wrong political actors in power, yesterday's common sense gun control could be tomorrow's vehicle for gun confiscation. And it was funny about that too. Just look at when you have a chance, look up Form 4773. Is it 4773? That's it. Right? I'm going to look that up right now. Maybe that, 4473. It's for the whole federal applications and crap like that, if I remember. Yeah, firearms transaction records, yeah. ATF form 4473. Thank you very much. So you definitely look at that. I consider the same thing. Gun registration. Time will tell if South Africa will descend down the path to tyranny, but its gun control experiment may prove to be fatal should the country take a turn for the worse. Gun control may not have a path to pendency around tyranny. However, gun confiscation is an egregious form of gun control that allows authoritarians to steamroll their subjects at will. The way gun confiscation enhances the consolidation of state power is undeniable. Its populace is simply no match for a representative apparatus that has a monopoly on the use of force. Gun rights may not guarantee victory against tyrants, but being deprived of them all but guarantees submission. And he is correct on that, because if you study the past, it's today's greatest teacher. So definitely I'm going to add a couple links on there. And there's another video you definitely should check out. It's called Innocence Betrayed, a JPFO by the Jews for Preservation of Firearms Ownership. And that's one fantastic video. Everyone's got to take the chance to share. You can probably go online, jpfo.org, and you can see it for yourself. I say this: if you buy it, that's great. Think of it as a tool. Don't be a crybaby. Take the initiative on purchasing these tools, because that's the best investment you can make. And I've seen this. I bought this in late 2007, and I gotta say, it's one incredible video. And the fact is, all these crybabies that get a little defensive, give them a penile microphone treatment. Just put even the women have it between on your crotch and then at the mouth, and what's that? My penile microphone, because you're mumbling as we speak. And don't worry, it's not sexual harassment. And this actually article came originally from Mises Institute, Mises.org. But this is great. So this is why I always appreciate what you see too in the alternative media are actually joining forces and sharing each other's input. So this is one thing I tell my friends: the past is today's greatest teacher. Gun control is nothing more than a monumental lie. Period. And anyone that supports it, common sense gun laws, tell them this: you're nothing more than treasonous parasites, Orwellian vampires, and stagnant saps. Tell these to politicians. If they get offended, who the hell cares? Because you know why? Because they believe they are smarter than you. All right? So that's all I got to say about it. So this one came out from a couple of days ago. Speaking of this is good news. Warning shot prevents robbery of pharmacy. It's from the American Free Press by Mark Anderson. It says here, Maryland pharmacist recently thought criminals druggies intent of robbing his store by firing a warning shot with his own handgun. While mainstream media aren't always keen on reporting it, armed citizens, including business owners, often exercise their right to self-defense simply by wielding their weapon and thereby avoiding bloodshed. Pakistani-born Wazim Amir, who arrived in the U.S. in the early 1990s, became a citizen in 1999 and owns a Caresmore pharmacy in Prince Anne, Maryland, is living proof of this reality. On the afternoon of August 13th, Amar, a licensed pharmacist, for the first time ever used his .38 caliber revolver in self-defense. Two would-be robbers wearing ski masks entered the store, as he described, when contacted by AFP. Amar, who was sitting in the back of the store in his office when the two young men entered the pharmacy, heard of commotion about 3 p.m. Prompting him to hack, Amar grabbed his licensed revolver from a drawer and confronted the men, firing one shot and left a hole in the front of the window to scare them. Meanwhile, other staffers called the police. One of the men had an especially powerful AK-47 military rifle, as Amar recalled for AFP, while adding this review for surveillance video footage later showed the other man fiddling under his clothing because possibly he stashed a weapon there. The man with the rifle ordered everyone down on the ground. Amar told local media right after the incident, including one customer, a woman who happened to be in the store. But when they saw my gun, they were scared and ran away. Although all way through the door, they came in. And then around outside to the back of the store, Amar told AFP while noting that he believed a third person had driven to the store and dropped the young men off for the robbery attempt. On August 14th, Prince Anne police charged Cody Allen King, 22, and Justin Michael Bull, also 22, both of whom are from Prince Anne, with armed robbery, and conspiracy to commit armed robbery. Local press accounts say there are no injuries and no property was stolen. Asked about their apparent motivation, Amar agreed with this AFP writer that the opioid epidemic may have been a factor. Highly addictive opioid prescription painkillers would motivate people to take extreme measures for profit and feed the widespread addiction to such drugs. If they steal drugs from pharmacies, they'll end up in the wrong hands, and there'll be more addictions and more deaths, Amar said, and more armed robberies, AFP interjected. That is possibly, Amar replied, when noting that stolen drugs either end up being sold on the street or the robbers are addicts themselves or both. Although Amar, who built his pharmacy business from scratch, is now outspoken about the Second Amendment. Right, so is not outspoken about the Second Amendment. He expressed appreciation about having a constitutional right to self-defense. He remarked, "My pistol is for store use. I used to have a concealed carry permit, but not anymore." And this story shows whatever the principle of defense of oneself, the loved ones, employees, and property is rationally exercised, there are lessons to be learned in this age of reported deadly shootings at schools, churches, and other venues where armed defense is strongly discouraged or illegal. There's Vano politicians scramble to get headlines, campaign donations, and votes by calling for more firearms regulations. Examples as such, one stand out as a clear indication that school and church officials who truly want to protect those under their wing cannot look the other way if they're serious about safety. Call it principle before politics. Let's hope it catches on. And you know what? I have to agree on this completely. Yes, you may hear a helicopter above me. That's okay. Yep, one moment. Sorry about that, friends. It's one of those things. You know, so you have a helicopter above me. And I even know, interesting about that with Mr. Amar, right? Mr. Amar's his name, right? Yeah. Hold on here. Woo. Yeah, Wazim Amar. He's got to know one thing, too. Even though they don't have a right to keep and bear arms in their Maryland's Declaration of Rights, he needs to look up Article 45, where the enumeration of rights cannot be disparaged or deprived. It's equivalent to the 9th Amendment. So, I could tell you this, in the Commonwealth of Maryland, yes, you do have the right to keep and bear arms without a license or permit because of Article 45 of your state's Declaration of Rights. Period. And those politicians that they're in Annapolis and Baltimore, etc., don't want you to know. So I gotta give Mr. Amar homage for this, because he should start teaching people about the right for self-defense and the police protection myth, which sovereign immunity tort liability. I know every state in the union has it. You can look that up. Don't be shy and share that with these folks. Become the teacher and the rabbi. Mr. Amar, I know he's capable of doing that. He's no dummy. None of these folks I talk to or read aren't idiots, unless they really deserve it. But that's why self-defense is righteous, regardless of your race, color, creed, etc. Whew, all right, that's a lot there. That's a lot there for the show. All right, hey, I'll be right back, so stay tuned. Cool, folks. All right, next one here, a little bit different. This is funny. This came up from American Thinker, and it says here, Stringer Retreats, Cory Booker, came out today by Monica Showalter. Is Spartacus no longer Spartacus? Sure, that way with New Jersey Democratic Senator Cory Booker suddenly backtracking on his claim of ancient Roman heroics at the Senate's confirmation hearing on Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, according to The Hill. Senator Cory Booker told The Hill Thursday that he did not intend to compare himself to Spartacus during last week's Supreme Court confirmation hearings, a moment that put him squarely into the political spotlight, but also led to some mockery. Booker, who was widely seen as preparing for a White House run in 2020, says he has no regrets about his Spartacus movement. It doesn't take away from the larger point, and again, all of this about the larger point. We have documents that have been hidden from the public that shouldn't have been hidden from the public, Booker said Thursday on Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation proceedings. So he admits he was a doofus and his imagined heroics, while his wild failing, grandstanding over whether a judge should have a job were kind of dumpy. Obviously, this is another example of a leftist ego on the downfire. Senator Kristen Gillibrand retreated from her grandstanding to call to abolish ICE and presumably all borders. And now Booker is saying he's no longer Spartacus. Hey, hi, I'm Kristen Gillibrand. I spread my butt cheeks to the Club of Rome. Think about that, folks. I will continue on here. Both Democrats want to be president, and some sort of little birdie has told them, saying that nutty things isn't going to get them that. In Booker's case, what we see is an overactive ego, a massive sense of grandeur, a routine legislative confirmation hearing, and a grand desire to the people's hero. People's hero? You should look at his track record as a mayor of Newark, New Jersey. Good grief. Sounds like the Senate job is boring him, and surprising for someone who thinks he's made for bigger things. In his case, the backtrack is there because his Spartacus moment made him an amazing figure of fun, even on the left. The Hill noted that some TV show from Showtime, unpromisingly named The Circus, came by and they camped in the hallway to film him, while Twitter was on fire. Nothing a big ego can stand than being laughed at by the public, given that he expects to be adored and heroicized. How very embarrassing. And now he's denying the whole thing and is not helping. Given that we heard him the first time, conclusion, he is not quite leadership material. Of course, and remember, he's another freedom-hating stooge. Another bend-over Bob to the New World Order. Yep, that's all I got to say about Cory Booker. Prove me wrong, folks, if you think he'd be a great president or a great leader. And don't worry, I'm not Republican either. I just laugh at these clowns. That's how it was like, hey, I'm weak and pathetic. Put me in. That's how these people want you to know. I talk a good game, but my actions are meek. Enough of that. Got one more here. Came from American Free Press once again. And it says here, why are we siding with Al-Qaeda? Dr. Ron Paul. In my last column, I urged the Secretary of State and National Security Advisor to stop protecting Al-Qaeda in Syria by demanding that the Syrian government leave Idlib under Al-Qaeda control. All right? So, while it means may seem hard to believe that the government is helping Al-Qaeda in Syria, it's not as strange as it may seem. Our interventionist foreign policy increasingly requires Washington to partner up with bad guys in pursuit of its dangerous and aggressive foreign policy goals. Does the Trump administration actually support Al-Qaeda and ISIS? Of course not. But the expert who runs Trump's foreign policy have determined that the de facto alliance with these two extremist groups is for the time being necessary to facilitate more long-term goals in the Middle East. And what are those goals? Regime change for Iran. Let's have a look at the areas where the U.S. is turning a blind eye to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. First, Idlib. Okay. As I mentioned in my last column, President Trump's own special envoy to fight ISIS said just last year that Idlib province is largest Al-Qaeda safe haven since 9/11. So why do so many U.S. officials, including President Trump himself, keep warning that Syrian government was not to retake its own territory form of Al-Qaeda control? Wouldn't they be doing a favor by ridding the area of Al-Qaeda? Well, if Idlib is retaken by Assad, it all but ends in neocon and Saudi and Israeli dream of regime change for Syria and a blackout to Syria's ally Iran. Second, one of the last groups of ISIS fighters in Syria are around the Al-Traf U.S. military base, which has operated illegally in northeastern Syria for the past 2 years. Last week, according to press reports, the Russians warned the U.S. military in the region that is about to launch an assault on ISIS fighters around the U.S. base. The U.S. responded by sending in 100 more U.S. Marines and conducting a live fire exercise as a warning. I'm sorry, I'm just dumbfounded. Is this a John Bolton and McMasturbator concept here? I'll continue on. Allegedly speaking, but this is too obvious, man, yeah? President Trump recently reversed himself again and announced that the U.S. will remain in Al-Traf indefinitely. Why? Is it considered a strategic point from which to attack Iran? U.S. means to stay there even if it means turning a blind eye to ISIS in the neighborhood? Finally, in Yemen, the U.S.-Saudi coalition fighting in the Houthis has been found by AP and other mainstream media outlets to be directly benefiting Al-Qaeda. Why help Al-Qaeda in Yemen? Because the U.S. real goal is regime change in Iran, and Yemen is considered one of the fronts in the battle against Iranian influence in the Middle East. So we are aiding Al-Qaeda, and which did attack us because we want regime change Iran, which hasn't attacked us. How does that make sense? We all remember the old saying, a tribute to Benjamin Franklin's Poor Richard's Almanac, that if you lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. The experts would like us to think they are pursuing a brilliant foreign policy that will provide a great victory for America at the end of the day. But as usual, the experts have got it wrong. It's really not that complicated. When winning means you're allied with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, if you're doing something wrong. Let's start doing foreign policy right. Let's leave the rest of the world alone. That's from the Ron Paul Institute. He's right. No ends, ifs, or buts. Okay? And all these people that ridicule me for supporting Ron Paul twice, once in 2008, another one in 2012, are now eating crow. That is right. You want me to go and belly up for Trump and worship kiss the floor he walks on? No way, no how. That's to any politician. I know a lot of people who vote for Trump want to end these bogus foreign policies. And many of them are a little bit insulted. And I can't blame them. But the ones that will still believe they're involved in Al-Qaeda and ISIS. You're being duped, my friends. Study your history before talking out of your rear end. Or actually talking about it. This would be more respectful. So one of the areas you got to look at, I always tell people, I made a little chant during 2007 at a Ron Paul rally. Say yes to a republic and no to an empire. It's time to bring all of our brothers and sisters that are serving home. You don't have to leave the bases alone. If you want to demolish them and all that, so be it. Including Guantanamo. Just blow it up. Demolish it. Don't leave anything behind. And let them clean it up themselves. Just sweep it up, and that's it. Now you got sides like Qaeda. A lot of double speaking going on. That's why I always tell people ISIS is New World Order funded. CIA doesn't matter. They're all on the same network. Don't tell me it's all radical Muslims in ISIS. Please. A lot of them are just, many of them are just Manchurian candidates too. Or hired fools. Hired mercenaries. That is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you send me something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. I will display all my social media accounts plus 2 emails on my Spreaker page. All right? Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is helping for soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.